They are the gleaming, ominous jewels that draw millions of visitors from around the world. The Canadian Rockies continue to captivate tourists and outdoorsmen alike. Now the history of their allure is the subject of a new book by Alberta author Brian Brennan. It's called Romancing the Rockies, Mountaineers, Missionaries, Marilyn and More. And Brian Brennan joins us now. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, this book is like a history of the Rockies as seen through the people who went there.
Yes.
Especially the very early people, of course. We know who visits now mostly.
Right.
And you can sort of divide it into two periods, right?
Yeah.
Pre-railroad and post-railroad.
Yes.
So what kind of people visited the Rockies before there was an easy way to get there?
Yeah. Well, of course, the natives will tell you, and especially the Stoney Nation will tell you that they were there all the time, that they never lived anywhere else. So, so they didn't come from someplace else. They maintain that the mountains are sacred places. And but the thing is, we don't know too many of the stories because, of course, they were never written down. So it's really, we have to wait until the first Europeans start coming over in the 1600s and the 1700s for the fur trade. So they were the first. That was what drew people. First of all, was moving the fur trade west. They were the first people who got to the mountains, and then we had the missionaries, of course, who were sort of always around. And then after that, I guess the question is, well, can you actually live out there? Is it possible for human habitation?
At that time.
Yeah, so that was why they had the Palliser expedition. I mean, basically their job was to check, well, look, can you grow things here? And see, the fur traders hadn't given out very much information about that because really they figured once we start getting settlers in here, that's going to be the end of the fur trade.
Right.
So they wanted to keep settlers out.
So in around the 1880s, this whole scene changed and the railroad comes, right?
Yeah, once they had the treaties, and then starting, in the 1880s when they started pushing the railroad through. And of course, once the railway was built, then everybody came. Everybody came,
including, and we have a picture of it, Marilyn Monroe,
yes,
who shot a film. There she is, and she's got crutches. She shot a film. It was called River of No Return, Otto Preminger film.
Yes.
Tell me, why is she on crutches?
She was, they were filming in Jasper and in the Maline River, and she slipped off a rock and she injured her ankle. And so they bandaged up her ankle, and then she was coming out of her motel one day, Becker's Bungalows in Jasper, and the daughter of the motel owner asked, was it okay if she shot a picture of her? And Marilyn said very graciously, yeah, sure. So
and
she
thank goodness she did.
Yes,
because
exactly.
that whole moment, that whole time could have been lost with the exception of the film, of course.
Well, that's right, yeah. And of course, there's no indication in the film that she had any injury. And then she re-injured herself again, actually, went down to Banff. And this time it seems to have been a more serious injury because they stopped filming for several days. And her co-star, Robert Mitchum, got pretty annoyed around that because basically they couldn't do any filming.
Because
Marilyn was in her bed in her suite in the Banff Springs Hotel giving interviews, you see.
You know, Brian, we'll look through some of the other pictures of the book as we talk a little more. Of course, we see a bear there.
Right.
Fellow saluting. The wildlife has long been the draw, right?
Yes, that's right. And that's what they called, this is the city dump. That's the Banff nuisance grounds, as they called it. And there was Conrad O'Brien French, who was a rather interesting character who was actually a secret agent during the Second World War, and he claims to have been the model for James Bond.
Wow. Who are we looking at here?
That's Carl Rungus. He was a wildlife painter, and what he did was, it was interesting. I mean, it would seem to be quite controversial now, but he used to kill the animals. And then he would set them up on, make it seem as if they were still alive, and stilts and that sort of thing, and then sketch them, and then make it seem as if it was a deer in flight.
As if it was a moment captured at the...
Right, exactly.
There are unbelievable stories in the book, and I know the research must have been enormous for this. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about it. The book has many more pictures, of course, and excellently tonight, Brian will launch his book, so you can meet him and talk to him more about it. The book is Romancing the Rockies. The launch is 7 p.m. tonight at Pages Books at 1135 Kensington Road. For more information, call 283-6655.
It was quite a long journey, but several Egyptian